Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. You are present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
All members present, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if you would all please stand and, Bobby, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
catch me off guard.
You gotta be alert around here, you know, your mom would tell you that. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda, including the approval of the consent agenda. What is the wish and the minutes from June 23rd? What is the wishes of the council?
Madam Mayor, move to approve.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda, including the consent agenda and the approval of the minutes from the June 23rd regular meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you. The motion before you is to approve the agenda. Is there questions, comments, or amendments to the motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll for the vote, please?
Yes. I'm going to change things up a little bit in the role as well. So I'm going to start with those who make motions. Deputy Mayor Linda Combs.
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberick.
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best.
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs.
Yes.
Councilmember Jill Valerius.
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. The next item on our agenda is reports, and the first report is our city manager's report. Sir, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am, and good evening. First, I'd like to start off, special event for us, our Fire and Palmer Rescue invites you to a promotional ceremony on Monday, August 3rd at 6 p.m. at Fire Station 3-1. We are promoting to lieutenant, I should have asked for pronunciations, John Dementi, Eleanor Johnston, Oral Scott, promoting a firefighter, Joe Balnius, Colt Graham, Jonathan Lewis, Mackenzie Norfleet, and Hayden Schultz. So I know some of you are planning to attend. I think if more than 3 attend, we need to let Norma know so she can qualify you for a meeting. But I will be attending. Is that correct, Norma?
Yes, sir, that's correct. If you can give me a moment, I can check to see who's even responded already for the August 3rd, because remember in August we had the
Right.
invitations for all those trainings. So if I can have a moment and report back, or
Sure.
I can just let everyone know tomorrow. What's the wish?
Either
me to
one,
look really
whatever.
fast?
You can put it into your report or, yeah. Because
Thank you.
during the month of August is every Monday night, the fire
Yes.
department had asked us. So there are some people maybe that have already responded for this date, not knowing that this special ceremony was going to be there, so.
Yeah, and intern Chief Todd Russell, I think invited us all to go through training to get a little bit better idea on what is happening with our department, which I think is a good thing.
Right.
So a couple things that are happening. It's got a few calls this week and regarding stuff happening at the fairgrounds. So what is being proposed is a hometown jamboree. It is August 8th through August 23rd. Kind of a deconstruction of the fair. So essentially, it's a limited number of folks buying your tickets online for rides, and I think it's a limited number. According to Golden Wheel Amusements, there's 25 rides, and they have it spread out. So contact will be limited. They're encouraging people to safe distancing, wearing masks, that sort of thing. But there has been a lot of discussion when they see the carnival rides coming in. So there was a question that I received earlier when this happened is why did the city of Palmer give them a permit to do so? So under Title 17, the City of Palmer has given Alaska State Fair Organization wide berth on our operations. This certainly falls in with what is permitted by Title 17 under the city code. So those type of events do not come to the city for approval. Next thing that I have this evening is we received public input notice on the central landfill for the Mat-Su Borough. They are asking for comments through August the 14th, 2020, and they will be doing a presentation on August 4th, 2020 at the regular Borough Assembly meeting. This is important to us because we provide refuge service and we use that facility for our trash and discarded treasures. So I will be commenting on this with the thought that anything they can do to hold our rates and allow Palmer residents to have access is where our heart is on that issue.
Okay.
More fun stuff is happening. I got an email yesterday from my new friend Dee. They are going to do a senior classic car parade on Sunday, August 9th through Palmer, through the borough, into Wasilla, and a little bit farther west, going past senior housing. So it's just going to be in cars, classic cars, and they're kind of lining this up for August 9th. On tomorrow, myself and the mayor will be meeting with Julie Anderson of ADA. She's the president or director of commissioner of ADA, to really kind of talk about the state's COVID funding process with businesses, specifically how we can help our own Palmer businesses. Kind of switching gears a little bit is I sent out a memo yesterday, and we have copies here, looking at approval of the municipal budget and putting together my plan on schedule for our budget. At the next meeting, I'd like you to review this and say, does this make sense to you as city council folks? Would you like any adjustments? But essentially, I want to tighten this up a little bit and have our budget approved by November 24th. Other than I like to get things done quickly and on time, there's a method to the madness because with our COVID grant funds, we may need December to make some adjustments so we can make sure we take full advantage of the money we've been given from the state. Also, too, going into the new year, 2021, having a full month advance to prepare, I think would be helpful to us for operations. So if you please review that, and then next meeting during manager's comments, give me a thumbs up, and I'm open to any change. With that, I want to report that we just got our second quarter financial report, and revenues at this point in time are at 43.76% at the end of June. That's pretty much right in line with that. We get a good portion of our property tax money in the second half. Our expenditures are 41.35, and that has been helped greatly because I've not been here that long. It's a joke. Okay, so it's at 41.35. So, but
It's pretty bad when he has to tell you it's a joke, so you know to laugh.
okay, I'm new. I just remember I'm new. Okay. So this year for sales tax, the great news is January, February, and March. Each month, it was our best sales tax collection month we've ever had in the city of Palmer. May, not so much. We were down 17% in May. We also dropped some in June. So we are watching this very closely. We do not anticipate getting 100% in our sales tax. We think it is a good potential. It's going to potentially fall significantly, and these COVID numbers rise, we're even more concerned. I think, at least in my view, when the COVID stuff hit in March and April, the view was if we can just get through just 1 month, we're going to be golden. well, we were kind of fooled on that. So this is going to be a challenge for us, and I think it's going to impact our operations. And so we're watching our expenditures on what absolutely needs to be done and what can be delayed. So with that, I did prepare a memorandum for you that I think is also important on the COVID-19 funding grants. And essentially, what we I'm asking the City Council to do is to declare a potential conflict of yourself as members, and then be ruled upon us. So we did get direction from the state that I think potentially clears the City Council and our boards from participating in this. And for both personal and for your business or family member's business, or you're sitting on a board that may get these funds. We have designed intentionally this business grant and nonprofit grant program that anybody who falls within this category is going to receive money. So it's not going to be a case, for example, where Mayor Edna qualifies and I qualify, but for some rating system, she gets it and I don't. Everybody who fits in that category, there will be funding available for you. Also too, not approved yet, but we are intending to put forward a rebate program based upon utility fees. That everybody who has water and sewer to City of Palmer, we are looking at giving a grant to you during this time. Everybody on City Council and our boards and commissions, I think most of them do qualify for that. That is a potential. So I think this is important because it really kind of tells the public we have this program, and yes, as elected officials and voluntary officials who sits on our board's commission, we also are going to participate. In the past, when City Council had to rate water and sewer, increase water and sewer, the general public knew that it was going to affect you. But because this is a new program, I think it's very good to signal to the public that yes, this is a situation for us individually, and we are opening doors, quite a bit to transparency. When that is done, if you choose to do that, it will come to the mayor to regulate on whether you do qualify or do not qualify, based upon the conflict. And this has been reviewed with our attorney, and I think if we could have Mr. Gotti speak to that during his time. But I would ask you to do that. I think it's the safest way to do it. We have designed this so you would, in most cases, be eligible for these funds.
And Madam Clerk, maybe before Mike speaks, our attorney, you might want to pull up maybe the section of the charter and the code that conflict pertains to. So, yeah.
I can see if I can find that fast.
Yeah, and then
It's not the report line. Like, I'm not gonna be able to do it while I'm doing my report, so.
yeah, right. Well, Mike's going to talk now, so that gives you a little bit of time. But yeah, and then so everybody, and maybe send it to the people that are online. So if they don't happen to have the code in front of them, they'll understand what Mike's going to talk about and what John has talked about. Okay. All righty, Mike.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
thank you. Thank you, Manager Musi, for your presentation on this. The material that we received from the state, well, let me back up a second. I think I've mentioned this at least on one occasion, maybe twice at the meetings, that the State CARES Act grant agreement is really a revision to a small degree, of Title 37 grant agreement. And Title 37 are the Alaska statutes that control state grants to local governments and others. And it was adopted years ago because there were direct grants to various organizations, and there were some issues with regard to how those were being administered. So the state set up this grant agreement. And looking at the grant agreement, it doesn't really clearly fit into a program that basically provides funding for a disaster emergency. And when you sort through the grant agreement itself, there's a number of places where it shows this is really a document that was designed for construction projects, because it talks about the project and the projects listed in the grant agreements as the funding. It talks about Davis-Bacon wages being used and some other things that suggest to me that this was really a grant agreement designed for construction projects. And if you look at the conflict of interest provision in one of the attachments, I believe it's Article 14, you read that, and the municipal attorney group has described that language as sort of wonky language because it doesn't really fit what these funds are attempting to do. So there are a number of issues that were raised through discussions, and AML and other municipalities asked the state to clarify the intent of Article 14, which thankfully they did. And so they determined that that agreement was really for people that might engage in contracts or subcontracts under the grant agreement. So it clarifies to some degree, but also there are provisions in our city code in the Charter 3.6F and also in Palmer Municipal Code 2.06.130. And those are provisions that, as you review your eligibility or not for any of these funds, to take a look at and bring those forward. And if you have questions, please give me a call or Mr. Musi, and we'll try to help you through that. But that's sort of where we're at. So even though the state clarified the grant agreement language, which again, the municipal attorneys as a group sort of described as a little bit wonky, we still have our code provisions and Title 29. And the Title 29 provision is 2910.010, and that's the default COI language that basically talks about substantial financial interests. And our code is closely parallel to those concepts. So, Madam Mayor and Council, those are my comments on this particular issue. And I think Mr. Musi did a good job in bringing this forward to you to alert you to this possibility so that you could evaluate it as appropriate. And if there are any questions, I'll try to answer them, but I don't want to get into specifics right now. If people do have issues they want to discuss with me, if they give me a call, that would be good.
Okay, questions from the council to Mike regarding the conflict of interest?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I guess the only question that I would have, this is Councilmember Valerius, is what is a substantial financial interest? How is that defined?
Mike, would you like to go ahead and answer that?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Title 29 doesn't define it, and our code doesn't define it. So it's sort of a relative term. I don't like sort of that indefiniteness with regard to these sorts of things, but those are, it's not defined. That's basically all I can say.
Norma, could you change the screen here so that I could see the rest of the council? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Councilwoman Valerius.
Madam Mayor, I guess
Thank
one
you.
follow-up question that I have is, so apparently we have no definition of, I mean, I can see I could use myself, like if it's my business, that clearly is a significant financial interest, my own business. But say you're an investor in a business and a significantly minority share, like is that a substantial conflict of interest? I mean, there's got to be some sort of a number. What says substantial? I don't know exactly, but there must be some term of substantial is 50% or it's 40% or it's in general. There's got to be something. It would be my guess.
This is one of the issues that I was hoping that we would address in our ethics, just like what you said, Councilwoman. It really needs to be a percentage, because to somebody, $1,000 is not substantial. To another person, $1,000 may be substantial. So it almost has to be, in my opinion, a percentage. But right now, there isn't a percentage mentioned, in it. And so, Deputy Mayor Combs, were you trying to get our attention? No, okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, go ahead.
There was, Madam Mayor, I will mention that I had a little bit of trouble hearing because I was listening to, Mr. Gaddy, but I could hear you and, the city clerk as well. And so by the time Mr. Gaddy's called in and then it goes wherever it goes so that I can get it as well, it's already a little difficult to hear. That's the only thing. I mean, I don't have any questions, but I just thought you guys should know that.
Thank you. Yeah, his volume changed when he was talking so that I could hear him on this end. So I don't know if that fluctuated on anybody else's end either. So, yeah, and the clerk is pulling up because there is a standard procedure regarding council members declaring the conflict, and then what my duties is regarding, yes, you do have a conflict, and then the council, I believe, confirms that. And then if that, and we haven't, as far as I know, we have not had a Zoom meeting where there has been a conflict. If we were all here physically, that person leaves the table. The majority of the time, they've even left the council room. They haven't sat out in the audience. They've left the council room, and some of them have even got outside. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle this on the Zoom, whether Norma's, whether you take yourself out completely and then call back in. Mike or Norma, do either one of you have a suggestion regarding that other step? Or John, do you maybe?
I think it just depends on if the council, the city clerk, the council decides if the person has to step out or if they can remain in the room. I think the physically removing from the dais and not participating in deliberation is, that key in Parley Pro and Robert's Rules. Leaving the room, that's just been a Palmer precedence. And you're right, that has varied even over the last several years. So if it's the wish of the council that they be completely disconnected, then there's ways of making that happen. But yeah,
because
there's ways of making
basically what you see up there is our council chambers,
right?
And quote the diocese. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Mike, do you have some? Mike, do you have opinion? And Councilwoman Burbrick, then I'll recognize you. Mike, have you thought this through? What do you have a recommendation for us?
As far as the Zoom, if someone does have a conflict and doesn't participate in the matter, how to handle that? I guess there's several options. I mean, there's really not an express protocol to address that. I think that if it's clear that the council member has removed themselves from the matter somehow in the new world of COVID meetings, I think that would suffice and be reasonable. Whether they would sign off and then sign back on, I don't know. Whether they would just indicate they were not going to participate. I think that would be okay too. I mean, they could always, I mean, it is a public meeting and you can hear what's going on, and the idea is that they remove themselves from the matter as opposed to not hearing what was said. Although I think the Palmer City Council has been very diligent and wanted, and you know, when people would leave the room and remove themselves from the council table, they wanted to make sure that it was recognized by the public that they were not involved in the issue. So I think there's a number of ways to do it. I don't consider myself a techie to know all the ins and outs of how Zoom operates, but there may be ways to, and Norma probably knows this, but there may be ways to mute somebody, and that might be sufficient if you mute them. Because I know I've been in some Zoom meetings where people are muted by the city clerk, and then they raise their hand and they're unmuted rather, and go from there. But I have to say, Mayor, due to my lack of technological acumen, I'm probably not the best person to discuss Zoom technical aspects.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Burek?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think I got a little confused there because we went from talking about the CARES Act grants to basically just a conflict of interest. So I'm not sure if I got this correct or not. Can city employees or the members of the city council who either own businesses or have a share of a business, even if it's a minority share, are we allowed to apply for the CARES Act grants? Just stating that, you know, that we're on the city council or that we work for the city of Palmer.
Mike, do you want to go ahead and address that? Did you hear the councilwoman's concern?
Yes, I did. And the fundamental question is there a substantial financial interest? And there may be some other exceptions that would allow that. Council member, I don't want to speak specifically about anyone because I don't know your circumstances, not you, Councilmember Berberick, but the council in general as far as their business circumstances. But if there's a substantial financial interest, there's a process, as the mayor noted, to bring up, and you go through that process, and the mayor makes the declaration of a conflict or not, and the council can override that. I think they call it a veto in the Title 29, but that's basically the process. So it really depends on the facts and circumstances associated with the issue. And there are other issues where if someone's in a large group of people that would be involved in the matter, it's not necessarily a conflict, or if it's remote and conjectural, that may be an issue. And those sorts of concerns, but this is a prelude to the challenges in drafting conflict of interest legislation. And I recall Mr. Molesky came up the other day and expressed some of his experiences, and there are just a number of gray areas in this subject matter. So it turns on the facts, and I think that the lack of definition of substantial financial interest makes it more of a relative term than an objective standard to apply to an issue that might come up. And I'm sorry if you were confused. I wanted to just explain the grant and sort of some of the background to it and how the document itself was not really designed for these purposes. And, you know, that's not criticism, because I think the state was really trying to get these materials out very quickly. And even if you look at some of the grants, there's blanks in them. So that one provision in Article 14 in the grant was a conflict of interest provision that was a condition of the city accepting the grants to abide by. The second conversation about conflicts of interest emanate from Title 29 our charter and our code, which basically says that you shouldn't involve yourself in a matter if you have a substantial financial interest in it. And as Councilmember Valerius aptly noted, what is a substantial financial interest, and that's not necessarily defined with any certainty. So I don't know if that helps to clear up anything for you.
Okay, Councilwoman Burke, follow up?
No, it doesn't really clear anything up for me. I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. Councilwoman
Yeah.
Sabrina Combs?
Thank you. So I guess what I should just understand is any business that we may be an owner of, a minority owner of, or any nonprofits that we are affiliated with, if they apply, it comes before us, we should just declare our conflict of interest then. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right. And Mike, does that go to spouses and family members or only to the council person if they're involved in a business? Say their spouse or their, son is employed by a certain business. Does it filter down that far, or is it only for the city council person?
Well, I think it talks about a direct or indirect conflict in the charter. I'll have to double check that.
Okay.
But it's always best to disclose and go through the process and see where that lands. And like I say, I'm not familiar with the business interests of the city council.
Right.
So I can't really express any opinion one way or another. And then, again, you, Mayor, have been delegated that responsibility under the code and Title 29.
Okay, all right. I just didn't know if it went like to what nepotism is, regarding council members, family members being employed by the city or something like that too. And Mike or John or maybe Norma, at what point in our agenda for tonight would the council people make that declaration?
Madam Mayor, I think since we don't have specifically the applications in hand,
Right.
that two kind of paths we can take, I would suggest, is you could declare that just clear up front under council comments tonight,
Okay.
or address it as maybe if an application comes in, City Manager Musi, that you bring that before the council at that time. I think it could be handled either way. So I guess the biggest question is what would be the most efficient? Because if someone doesn't even apply for it,
Right.
then
right.
there wouldn't,
Right.
no purpose in going through all of that if someone's not even going to receive any or apply for the grant funds themselves. That's why I was thinking if John receives the application, brings it forward to address with the council, if not. So, I don't know, John.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I would suggest to maybe defer this to another meeting. I don't know. I don't, like I say, I don't know what anybody's circumstance is, but maybe defer it to another meeting to allow the council to think about this a little bit. And if there are questions, they can give me a call and I can speak to them about it, their particular circumstance.
Right. Yeah, I don't mind the council calling you, Mike, but I think really some of this discussion needs to be public. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Turning on his light, he's like.
Yeah, I have to, my eyes need to go. different ways.
So, and I have a little bit different view because we are attempting to get every homeowner or renter who pays water and sewer to the city of Palmer a grant. As the attorney says, who knows what significant financial interest is? We don't know that. So I think for clarity's sake, I would encourage all the members of the city council to declare a potential conflict. Let's go through the process, and then you can determine. That way, you will know the effort you have to put in, whether to do it or not. Like I said, we really to design this, if you fell within a category, everybody who falls in a category is going to be eligible for funding. We tried to make this as easy and plain, as simple for every person in the city of Palmer to be able to take advantage business-wise, and then also too for personal-wise. So I think that would be the safest way of going. And I think it's even more you would, we declare to the public that, hey, we're going to participate in these grant programs just like you are. That would be my suggestion.
Okay. And let's just talk instead of talking about business and nonprofit, because that's where I was thinking we were talking about. But so let's switch gears and talk about the water and sewer rebate. So is there going to be an application and people are going to apply, or are you automatically going to apply it to everybody's bill?
We believe at this point in time, we are required to have an application. We just can't send money out like the state does or the federal government does. Based on the program, we have to, it has to be an application. We will make it real simple, but we have to have signatures and somebody actually requesting the money. We'll make it pretty simple. And I have something else to say before we're done about the current program and how we're handling that.
Okay, all right.
Madam, one point on the applications. I think the manager is correct. There needs to be some due diligence that people are eligible who apply in general, and certifications that what they're representing to the city is accurate, and those sorts of things. And, maybe even indemnifications. I know the idea is to make it simple, and I understand that, but I also understand that there are requirements that the city has to abide by, and we want to make sure those conditions are fulfilled appropriately, and that when an audit takes place, that comes back a clean audit.
Okay, all right. So I guess there would be 3 programs that everybody would have to declare for the conflict of interest, right? One would be the water sewer, one would be if it was a business, and another one would be for a nonprofit. And I think probably on the nonprofit, if you say are the president or on the board, but if you're just in a general membership, Mike, is there a distinction? And I'll use myself as an example, and I don't know whether they have applied or not, but if the seniors, Palmer Senior Citizen Center would apply, I'm not an officer, I'm not on the board, I have just a lifetime membership there. So if they applied, would that be one, when we came to allocating the nonprofit grants, that I would have to declare a conflict of interest?
Well, I think that if you think there's a potential conflict, you should declare it and go through the process. And so if it was you, I suppose the deputy mayor would be the person who would be making that judgment. But yeah, I would declare it and go through the process.
Okay, so it's going to go down all the way down to membership then. It's not, so in a nonprofit, it's going to go all the way down to membership of that nonprofit. Is that what I understand you to say?
Yeah, and I think it's just a member. It's unlikely you'd have a substantial financial interest in that. But, some of the other issues are, as I think Mr. Musi is expressing, is how are the programs structured? Are they a broad class of people that would be affected? Is there any potential conflict remote or conjectural, those sorts of things? And to me, I know these rules are in place for a very good reason, but I also understand that there could be council. This is not just unique to Palmer, by the way. There could be council members that do want to, that do have some needs and they want to participate in the program. So there's still discussion to be had about this when people bring this up at whatever time they do that.
Okay. So since one of your recommendations was that we would quote, I think was your recommendation, put it on the agenda for our next meeting, and allow the council people to consider this. So then, am I stepping too far in saying that that would then restrict the city from, so if somebody, this account, I don't have a business, but say I did have a business, ABC Construction, and they were gonna apply for, a grant, then, I would, then if I qualified, then that would restrict the city of Palmer from sending me a check like they're sending XYZ Corporation a check, right? Until we had this on a public meeting on August 11th. Am I interpreting what you're saying correctly?
Madam Mayor, I think that the reason I suggested that was to give council members a time to think about this whole issue. And I think there's time in the program. Mr. Musi can speak to that, but to apply, even if this came up at the next meeting. So I would say that just get this cleared up and then do whatever they would like to do as appropriate, and go from there. But I'd say hold off on the application first.
Okay. Already. Council members, do any of you have some questions, comments? The city manager still has some more of his report, but do you have any questions or comments about what we've been discussing?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Deputy Mayor Combs.
I still have a little bit of problem in regards, I've never had a problem with recusing myself, and interpreting it, myself, very broadly, because of the transparency. What I'm not understanding here, and I've got no problem, in some respects, I have no problem with the recommendation of the city manager, just make things simple. But what I want to make sure I totally understand is I'm on the board of directors, for example, of the senior center, am a lifetime member, just like you are, but I am on the board of directors. There's no way that I can even understand in an extremely broad sense how I would have no problem recusing myself, but I don't want it to hurt the application of the senior center. There's no way that I can even begin to understand how someone on the board would receive, that they would need a real recusal because they're not receiving any kind of financial consideration. Am I totally in left base here?
Okay. Mike, would you, kiddingly, Linda, I guess maybe, they wouldn't raise the price of the lunch for you and I or something, but that's a joke. So anyway, Mike, would you like to address Deputy Mayor Combs's concern?
Well, the idea that she's on the board, but she doesn't get any substantial financial interest from it. She doesn't benefit from it. That might be a reason that there isn't a conflict. But the other part of it is she could recuse herself and not participate in the CARES Act program at the seniors. So, those are the choices, I suppose. And maybe there's more, but I understand what Councilmember Combs is saying. Councilmember Linda Combs.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Problem with recusing myself, how does it affect the nonprofit application? If there's someone that's recused themselves from that, would it just be a matter that myself wouldn't have a vote on whether or not they receive funds?
I think that's it. I don't know that it would affect the application. Maybe Manager Musi can address that, but I assume they would still have the ability to apply at the seniors. Didn't they hire a new executive director several months ago, and I presume they would sort of shepherd that through.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman Sabrina Combs.
Thank you. I don't want to interrupt this or sound like I'm trying to cut it short, but we are not the only city council in the state of Alaska that's experiencing this. And the Alaska Municipal League has set forth a lot of different guidelines that all of us could work with, ensure that the manager has seen those guidelines. That way we're not reinventing the wheel here. All of these questions can be answered just by reaching out to AML. Every community in Alaska is facing these issues. So if Manager Moosey hasn't done that already, which I feel that he has, I would suggest that we follow those guidelines.
Okay. I think Mike at the beginning did say, you know, he had been in contact with attorneys around the state and stuff. So, and I don't know what the AML guidelines, you know, are. Mike, have you seen them? And can you tell us? I know you have been in contact with a lot of other attorneys.
Yeah, there's different views on certain things. You know, some of the issues are, and you know, the thing about these conflicts issues is a lot of it's subjective, and a lot of it depends on the totality of the circumstances related to the potential conflict. And so, under the common law, there's some exceptions, and also under some other statutes that don't necessarily apply to us, but are guidance to follow. If it's a large group of people, like, for example, council and assembly members all over the state vote on the mill levy, and the mill levy gets increased and affects them if they're property owners. You know, that's a large class of people. So that's one issue. The other issue is a potential conflict, remote or conjectural. Then another issue, as council members have noted, what constitutes a substantial financial interest. And all of those things are questions to address. And council member Sabrina Combs is right. There was a very general AML statement from Mills that could apply. But like I said, the reason that I suggested council members take a few moments to, just absorb this information and consider it is to allow them to carefully think it through and look at these things. And I think it's good advice from council member Sabrina Combs. You know, you can look at the resources on the AML. You can talk to me if you're so inclined to try and talk it through. I agree with you, Mayor, too. It should be aired publicly. But, you know, obviously the Palmer City Council and the mayor are certainly attentive to these issues and, in my opinion, will do the right thing and look at things closely and carefully and make appropriate decisions once they have the information to consider about potential conflicts issues.
Okay. So I guess unless the council has different, because of, you know, how much research and how much thought each one of you may want to go into, for our August 11th meeting, we will add a section so the public also will have a right, and then we will have a specific item on our agenda to deal with the conflict of interest. Is there any objections from the council to moving forward in that direction? No. Okay. All right. And John, you had some further.
Yes, I have two quick things. Mm-hmm. Since we're talking about the grant program, this past week we had 40 business and nonprofit applicants. We are in a position to award grants to those. Those should be going out tomorrow or Thursday. Doing a pretty, they had to fill out an application. We verified the application. In some instances, we checked and got additional information. So we will be sending a check and a grant agreement for them to sign and return. So your hope that we could get this money out to our businesses quickly is happening. We are going to do some further pushing on this. Applications will be received by Friday, August 14th at 5 p.m. So the program is moving. So that's good news. The last thing I have is got word that the week of August 3rd, the Alaska wing of the Civil Air Patrol will be conducting glider operational training at the Palmer Municipal Airport. They will have, they're practicing gliders, getting out of trouble with gliders. And so they have tow ropes, recoveries, all kinds of stuff. So the week of August 3rd, if you look up, you may see something really cool. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Any questions, comments to the city manager regarding his report? Okay, ready, Madam Clerk, we're ready for your report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight I have just a few items, nothing like last time. The referendum petition, you have a memo in your packet right now, a written report here that I just want to elaborate and touch on. The referendum has been received, has been certified. At this point, it is ready to be slated for the ballot. And there is sample language in there that I'm continuing to work with the city attorney on making sure the ballot language, but that is very close to what it will look like. And some data set in there. I just wanted to point out to council that referendums are a little different than initiatives and what the next steps are for the process. It has been certified. The council, as you can see, the very last paragraph here on the first page of the memo, which is page 41 of the council packet, it is that the council can, by majority vote, favor the repeal of the matter referred, and that would refer the questions on the ballot, which means that if that's the case, then council is repealing Palmer Municipal Code 5.32.
Okay.
If nothing happens tonight, if council does not want to make that motion, which I can, completely understand, letting the process continue as is, it will be on the ballot automatically by a referendum petition process. So I just wanted to kind of point that out because I think last council meeting, I accidentally referenced initiative petition process. And so they are different. As the initiative petition process, you can pass something substantially similar. This, you would have to pass exactly what was repealed and vote in the majority in favor of exactly as the referendum petition was presented.
Okay, and do we have, if the council would desire, do we have time to do that? Because if we were, like, we have another thing regarding, the fact that we're repealing, or may repeal the plastic bag ban. Would that be similar? And we've had to have 2 meetings on that. So on this one, would we have to have 2 meetings and a public hearing? And do we have time to do that?
Right, so the code isn't very clear, and microphone. The code is not very clear as to the specific process on that.
I'm sorry, it was.
Well, it would be,
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, did Norma ask me a question? I didn't hear that clearly.
No, we stopped because a council member chimed in. I think what had happened is my microphone got turned off. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So someone was saying, I can't hear her. Sorry, Madam Mayor. My fault for not getting the microphone on. Actually, Mike, I do want to ask you this question. So our code is not very clear as to the exact steps and process on that. For a repeal of the code, what is clear is that you have to have an introduction of the ordinance. You would have to have then a public hearing to repeal that.
Right.
We don't have that time.
Right.
Because unless we call special meetings
Okay.
to do that.
Uh-huh.
But what we do know is that if that is a wish of the council, that might please help massage what I'm trying to explain here, is that you're doing exactly what the referendum is proposing, which is in time to get on the ballot. So continuing to move forward with that referendum process, you do have time for that. Without calling a special meeting, you don't really have the time for an introduction and a hearing. You would have an introduction, just throwing things out here. Like on the 11th of August, then you'd have to call a special meeting that week on Wednesday or Thursday in order to have that public hearing on that item. To do the same thing as what would be on the ballot measure, the referendum measure.
Okay.
So I just want to make that clear. It would be the exact same thing. So Mike, can you help massage what I was trying to explain?
Yeah, I can weigh in, Norma.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I think that the city clerk explained the process quite well. To supplement those comments, an initiative petition typically tries to initiate or adopt a law, and a referendum generally repeals a law. And the processes are a little different under the initiative, as the city clerk advised. If the council adopts a substantially similar measure, then the citizen ballot proposition is no longer effective because you've enacted a substantially similar law. In contrast, a referendum is repealing a law, in this case, the marijuana prohibition. So the concept that underlies that issue is if you repeal that section of the codes, it accomplishes basically what the citizen referendum was attempting to accomplish, basically repeal of a law, which would have to go through a process of equal dignity. And since it was adopted through an ordinance, there would need to be an ordinance to repeal it. And I'll defer to the city clerk about any timing issues with regard to that if the council wishes to entertain that option. But the other difference is on the referendum and the ballot, because the petition was certified with sufficient signatures, that's an exercise of a direct democracy by the citizens, and unless the council does repeal it through council action, it goes on the ballot no matter what. So that's sort of the issue. And just a quick aside, what we're really seeing is democracy in action, and the difference between direct democracy, that is citizen initiated or referred legal measures based upon constitutional and statutory directives, versus representative democracy, where citizens elect representatives, be it in Congress, the state government, or local governments, to address law and policy issues that are within the public's interest. So that's just a little aside I'd wanted to throw out there, because I think it's a little bit of an interesting background distinguishing between those two fundamental concepts of constitutional and statutory and code processes. So if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to the attorney or to the clerk? The only thing I would say is that I think at the future time, we need to relook at our code so that the referendums would have to be turned in enough time prior so the council would be able to address that. This way, with this being turned in at, quote, this sort of late time, to me, in our normal course of business, without having a special meeting, we don't have the time to address it. So, and that must need to be a code change where it would say if there was going to be a referendum on the ballot in October, that it would have to be submitted to the council by a certain period of time. You see what I'm saying?
You're asking me if
Well,
I
I'm
see,
telling
I do
you,
understand
I'm
what you
telling
are
the
saying,
council
yes.
and telling them that I think that that's a place where our code needs to be changed to be able to have the council be able to address it. Because, as you said, the only time we could have the introduction on August 11th, and then we'd have to have a special meeting a couple nights later, and that really, yeah. So I think maybe we need to, and if it's just a code, then we could take and say, okay, if there is going to be a referendum, if somebody's going to put forth a referendum, that it would have to be by a certain date so that the council would have the option. Because to me,
Your hands are tied
Yeah,
at
our
this
hands
point.
are tied. Yeah,
Unless you call a bunch of special meetings.
yeah.
That's
right.
that's kind of the
Yeah,
feedback
so
of what I'm
it's-
hearing, yeah.
Yeah, sometime later on, after the election, probably, I will take and talk to Mike about bringing forth, and you to bring forth something, because I don't think it gives the public a right, they will, of course, be able to vote on it, but they aren't able to really address this because it's not even an item on the council agenda tonight regarding it. So, okay. Any other, are you done with your report, Madam Clerk?
No, Madam.
Okay,
No, Madam Mayor, I have a few, two more things.
sure.
I wanted to also let the council know that the appeal hearing I reported on last council meeting, as we continue to work through that process, it has been part of the code and the process is that a hearing officer has to be chosen by a list that's maintained by the manager myself. And so I wanted to report back to you that we have gone through everyone on that list, compiled 3 people that are available for this hearing.
Okay.
Price difference between all of them is $100 gap per hour. So I know that's kind of a look on the face. So at this point in time, it's attorney Joe Levesque. We have used him in the past as hearing officer as well. The next person, like I said, is $100 an hour more. So this time we'll be moving forward with Joe.
Okay.
The manager does have that ability to appoint, and he will continue that process. As he has said, he's available, but we have a couple more steps for full appointment process of that. So I just wanted to report that to council as it says to do that appointment, to report to council on that appointment.
Okay.
And then the other is, as campaign season is still here, the candidate filing is still open until Friday at 4:00. So that means campaign season is upon us, because as soon as someone applies, they are a candidate. I want to make that clear. And we have one candidate who has been verified. We use the terminology certified, but has been verified, and name will be on the ballot unless they withdraw next week. We do have a 1-week withdrawal period.
Okay.
Deadline is on August 7th. So at this point, we have one application or one certified petition packet, and we have 2 position open, so I'm kind of hoping more come in. So we have 1 so far. 1 certified here, and that has been announced and posted on our website. It's posted on our bulletin boards, and it is on our website. So if I can stall a little bit more here, I can tell you, I know his first name's Brian, and but I also want to let you know that, as I had just stated his name, this is not a notation of any kind of campaigning for any one person. So, but the one name we have so far.
And have we had some
Brian
interest?
Daniel.
We have some, thank you, who said that? Brian Gilday? So,
Daniel.
Daniel. See, it's not even Brian. That's how much is going through my brain right now. There's so much going on. We had election training this morning on our new equipment. So my mind is just trying to take that in and all of the changes that we're going to have to embrace with just the new equipment alone. It was a very interesting training. I'm excited. I'm so happy the new equipment is extremely intuitive. I think the voters are going to enjoy having the ability to really, I want to say, it's empowering the voters on what they're doing with their ballot. So the old software, the old machines, you put it in the machine and it just kind of took it right on through. And if it had any problem, it would shoot back. But you didn't really know what that issue was of why your ballot was coming back. And a lot of people thought it was a rejection or, but we call it return now, why it was being returned. This one, the machine will tell you right there on the LCD screen why. How did you vote? Did you overvote? Did you undervote? And what do you want to do? Or did you not vote at all, which would be the undervote, right? And then it allows the voter right then and there to say, yeah, I purposefully meant to fill in that many ovals. Take it, cast it. Or, oops, I made a mistake and I want to get a new ballot to vote, because we do allow for accidents and spoiled ballots and so forth. So it's really great as I'm learning about this, it's really great to give the voter that opportunity right there to determine what happened and why the ballot's doing. Because last year, what would happen if someone came back and rejected, the election official standing there would just say, oh, did you maybe not fill out all the circles? Did you maybe undervote, overvote, but no one really knew why. And, somebody could have been like, I'm not sure. Maybe they didn't circle it properly. Instead of filling in the oval, they just circled or something like that. This actually tells you all of that. It's really great. It's so precise. So I'm excited about it. But that also means that now I'm like, okay, now how do I program these ballot or the cards? And just a lot going through my mind. So thank you for the correction on the name. I was way off. So we have that one. Do we have other interest? I have not received any phone calls of people coming in to pick up any other packets.
Okay.
So
So if they maybe downloaded it or something, you don't
yeah,
know, which is fine, but.
yeah.
but
So I'm
that's
hoping
okay.
people are getting them off the website. That's what's happening. And so we'll see what's going on. We do have until, again, hit out there, anyone interested, you can download the packet, you can call the phone number 761-1301. We're happy to meet with you, give you and provide you a packet. You have until Friday at 4:00 to submit a completed statement and the 20 required verified registered voters signature sheets. So, and then also just that big other note is that as we are entering into campaign season, just a reminder that any candidates who are going to be on the ballot, the city of Palmer does not promote any of that. We do have the list of the names because it is based on the ballot. What is listed on the ballot, that will be on our website. That is the extent of what will happen. We don't do anything with social media other than provide the sample ballot because it is our ballot.
Sure, right.
So I just want to confirm that with the council and the public that we do not get involved in that. If there's any questions about campaigning, that is through APOC, the state of Alaska's APOC.
Okay.
So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions to the clerk? Madam Clerk, I don't see Councilman Best and Councilman Carrington on. Are they on, just not on Zoom or?
Yeah, they're
Correct.
on teleconference.
That is true.
Okay, so, but they're both here. Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Yeah, Steve's online.
Okay, anyone have any questions of the city clerk regarding her report or anything else that you'd like to talk to her or ask her a question about? Okay, alrighty, the next item is my report, which you have a written copy of in the packet. And as John said, that we're going to meet tomorrow with the commissioner in the afternoon. And the 911 task force has been meeting. Last week I had 2 meetings. This week I'll have 1. The subcommittee that I'm on is meeting on Wednesday mornings, and we will do that throughout the month of August. Our report to the governor is due the end of August, September 1st. So, and then we have a couple things. AML has a district meeting on the 3rd of August, and we had a AML meeting with the governor yesterday, and we had one the week before also, just keeping us abreast of what's going on. The governor did have a press conference this afternoon, and so I listened to most of it, but if there are some things that maybe we need to address, we will. We do have a mayor's managers meeting on August 20th, but the mayors and managers may be getting together quicker than that just to see. The Mat-Su Borough is not in the red zone, we're in the orange zone. But if there are any things that maybe we would need to bring back to the council or to address borough-wide or citywide. So, any questions on my report? Okay. Mike, do you have anything further on the attorney's report?
Madam Mayor, I don't this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions of the attorney? We haven't already covered? Okay, all righty. Okay, the next agenda is audience part. Anyone can in your minutes if you're representing a group. And so audience participation is now open. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you'll press the button and you'll get a red light for, that means you're on. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, and council members, thanks for having me here. I first want to say, it appears that you're doing a fantastic job when I walk through Palmer and drive through Palmer, a town that I was born in. I really enjoy it, and I talk to people often, including that want to come back, including recently the chief DOT traffic officer for the state. Anyway, he's a Palmer resident for a long, long time, 30 years in DOT. Moved to Anchorage some time ago, and he wants to come back, and that says a lot about what you guys are doing. Well, my personal background, by the way, as I said, I was born in Palmer, lived here for many years, moved to Wasilla for a while. I'm now back out at the Butte. My professional background is construction, engineering, and operations, largely in oil and gas, but I was the vice president for CH2M Hill, head of the Western region for mining, for power, and oil and gas, 23,000 employees in 66 countries. And so I do know a little bit about engineering, managed hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of engineering. And at issue, what I'd like to just maybe stir some conversation is the intersection right out front here. And it's what's called in the business a vertical traffic calming feature. And when I first drove over it, I thought maybe there was a sewer main that you couldn't get enough clearance for. It had to be there, and then later I found out that essentially it's a speed bump. And I started doing a little bit of investigation on, should it be there? What purpose does it serve, et cetera. And what I did find is lots of studies on how traffic is slowed with such a device. No studies on enhanced pedestrian traffic. Really, there's not even really anecdotal evidence. I wish there was anecdotal evidence, and confirmed that with the chief traffic engineer. It's even so esoteric as in many of these manuals, they say it makes people walking through the intersection feel like they're above the traffic, and therefore it's more inviting. Whether that's accurate or not, whether it improves the flow of pedestrians, really nobody knows. But what it does do is it increases the noise. People hit that, people slow, people reaccelerate. It's really not a green solution. But interestingly, I want people to think about why you want to disrupt the traffic with a speed bump when there's already a light. Above all, and is it the city's intent to have people walking against the light? And by that I mean if there were signals out there saying stop, go for a pedestrian, when that light is green on Evergreen through traffic.
That's okay. Go ahead, sir.
Do you want people walking across it? And is this feature actually encouraging that? I mean, that's a question I really don't know the answer to, but it seems like it's worth asking. And is it desirable to have some percentage of people avoiding the street altogether? That's really how I've solved it. I kind of hate to say it. I go often from the Butte to Wasilla, where my parents live. I've just now have a habit of, I take a left there at McDonald's and Fred Meyer's, and I go down to Arctic, and I go home. Used to be I stopped at Vagabond Blues oftentimes. Sometimes I stopped at Subway. And in fact, the data shows that up to 10% of the people will avoid this road with one vertical traffic calming feature, up to 20 as you go more than one. And so that's another reason why it's very difficult for the studies to really nail down what the improvement is, what's actually happening, because 10 to 20% of the people take that problem, whether it's speeding or what have you, to another intersection. And so is that occurring? Is there a way to try and understand that is this doing what somebody promoted it to do? And of that notion, I'm told by DOT that it was a City of Palmer it would have been a City of Palmer request. In other words, he said, we don't advocate for them, we don't not advocate for them, we wouldn't have recommended it. We would have gotten some input from somebody at the city that says, hey, we'd like to do something here if there's a problem. And then maybe we'd propose some solutions, or the engineer working on it would propose some solutions.
Okay.
Anyway, as I said before, it increases noise, deceleration, acceleration, 2 sets of suspension jolts going over it. EMT vehicles, emergency response vehicles, and all the studies that I've read, they should be big stakeholders in the decision. I don't know if they were stakeholders at all. And so really, I'd like to prompt some discussion on the topic, and maybe a city council member would, even if somebody who doesn't like it, obviously, would take the lead. I've on my submission here put the names and contact numbers of Todd Smith, the current DOT project manager. Really would be good for you to invite him and chat with him. He kind of has the same concerns that I have about why is it there. And then, of course, the head of the state DOT, his number and name is on there as well.
Okay.
I won't take any more of your time.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else that would like to address the council? Okay, go ahead, sir.
My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I represent myself. I live in the Metro Valley. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely public interest. I address concerns about it being a wild, wild west in the valley with respect, difficulty for people to wear masks, or contempt of people, city council members, mayors, so forth. They don't want to wear masks. But the ramifications of what's happened in the borough is alarming. You have businesses out in Wasilla where I'm telling employees they cannot wear masks. I reported that to the Borough Assembly at 2 occasions. That's a level of contempt. But now we've got the state fair. If you look on the website for that fair, they recommend wearing masks. Now, this weekend there was an event over there. I attended very briefly to witness what was going on, and I got the heck out of the state fair fast. Thousands of people were there. Hardly anyone was wearing masks. In sections where there were food areas, hardly any food parties in the business were wearing face masks. And the people in the business to run the fair, the presenters I witnessed, the staff, they were not wearing masks, hardly anyone there. That's what's going on. Now, as Anchorage right now is dealing with the issue, I'd like to remind you of the situation. What are you waiting for? Because the ramifications of what's happened here, and I strongly encourage you, the borough has approved funds for State Fair, but their complicity of allowing thousands of people to be coming in without face masks and to have a situation like that, you have no other choice to shut down the fair. Because, and there's a reaction going to be, but you know what the next step could be? And they would have a right. In Anchorage, they're doing certain numbers of restrictions. And as you know, when the states of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, they work together. This is the second largest population in the state. And you have a good part of those people in the valley work in Anchorage. You know, they would have right, is waiting for a scenario, is they will say, okay, valley people come in, you're going to need to be quarantined. That's it. It needs to be a partnership in what you have done and your party, because you're looking at the state fair as sales tax revenue. I listen to those conversations in here in this room. But you are complicit allowing the situation with the state fair. So what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for in this room? That at least the press frontiersman wears a mask every time he comes in. I give him credit. But he still witnesses the borough assembly members, hardly anyone wearing masks. And I close with that, and just add a footnote, just one footnote. The mayor in Wasilla recently issued a communication that says masks for any patrons in facilities and staff. But that's the facilities. What about the whole Wasilla. And you have responsibility of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address? Yes, come forth, sir.
And the wipes, this is the big bucket of wipes that has cleaner if you want to wipe down the suds bucket. Yes.
Okay.
Looks a little different, but that's what we get.
That's what okay. Done. Well, I really am Mike Molesky, and I live at 5 East Fireweed Avenue. And I want to thank the gentleman who stepped forward and in great deal of detail, obviously with experience, spoke to the issue here. And when that conversation happens, I would ask you to consider moving it over to where I live, because I'd like to see it there. Because my point, I've thought about coming and talking about it, is for whatever reason, Fireweed has become a straight road where if someone stops at the stop sign there, the joy is to see what speed can be attained by the end of the street once you've passed the 3 churches and you have to slow down to make a turn. And I've noticed that both going Chugach as well as on Fireweed, and I've lived there for a long time, but recently there's been an increase in rapid acceleration with particularly noisy vehicles. I mean, and again, I don't know whether the general ambient noise has declined because of the pandemic's effects, but yes, by all means, move it, but move it over to where we are and make it higher. Maybe that would be good. Second thing is I dealt with, I appreciate the mayor's reference to the governor's press conference. I listened to that, but I was listening to 2 at the same time, so I think I've got them straight. Because the new superintendent over at the school district also had at the same time 5 o'clock. So let me report the most essential thing that I think that came out of that, and it's been reported in other media, ADN and so on. Metsu School District has decided to go mask. That means all students above the 3rd grade and all staff will wear masks for any of the face-to-face arrangements. Now, we have been following this story for a long, long time about masks. And I think it would be worth your while if you want to see their perspective, because they did a very, very nice job of having Dr. Trainee answer questions, and they had a great following of questions being asked on the chat system they were using. And it was pretty instructive. But the point over and over was made that that's this point in time, because they could already see that masks would be essential should face-to-face school happen. Now, it could be that as numbers change that they will go to one of the other plans, but I think it's important to look at the rationale they used for making their determination. Thank you very much for listening.
And anyone else would like to address the city council on any matter, whether it's on the agenda or not? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I do have some written testimony
Okay.
that as we have received and we have started practicing, that they be read into the record, and would like to know the wish of the council. If it was emailed to the council
Okay.
earlier today around 5 o'clock, just a little after 5. So they have had a few hours of review. This isn't something that they are just now seeing, which I think is some of what was a factor when we started reading these into the record. I'm not sure why exactly we changed that. But I will read these into the record if that is the wish of the council. They are available in the back of the room. They are in the council members' hands. We do have them, I do have them portioned out as one public testimony non-agenda items, which is what I would read at this moment. And then I would request that the other section be saved under the ordinance number 20007 public hearing to address those at that time.
Okay. So what is the wishes of the council? Do you want the correspondence. One is quite lengthy.
Madam Mayor,
Yes. Council,
I believe there's just one that requested to be read aloud. I'm digging through it. The others, it looks like it was just mailed to us.
okay. Was just
It was the first one. It was requested to be read aloud, and then the other two were just letters to the council.
okay. Okay, is there any objection?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
will you turn the screen back to face you? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All righty, so the question is regarding the testimony on the non-agenda items. As it was stated, there was one that was requested. The second one is Bob's, which I think he went over the main parts of it, but then he has additional supporting documents here. And then there is one additional one that was not requested. They didn't request it to be read. So is there any objections to reading the one and allowing the rest of them just to be entered into the record? Okay, Madam Clerk, so if you'll go ahead and read the one then, please.
Yes. This first one. The David and Andrea Fuller. Madam Mayor and Council, during the last council meeting discussion on Code of Ethics for the City of Palmer, Councilman Best ironically stated there are mechanisms, here, put my glasses on here, there are mechanisms within our city code of all the codes that we follow and the process that we follow, that if we as a reigning body feel that a member has stepped outside of what the norm is of how they should act, that there are mechanisms in which we can self-police, end quote. If I were to take this for what I would say that he believes that the will address improprieties by its members and issue to the public their position. With that being said, and after numerous complaints from the public, documentation in local and social media, and a failed recall effort, what is this body's position on the misconduct of Councilman Best? If these mechanisms are truly in place, where are they? Why has there been no discussion as a committee of the whole? Are we the people of Palmer to assume that due to the silence of this body on the topic, it is okay to call up and make unorthodox requests? Madam Mayor and Council, you were elected to not only lead but to set the standard, and when you take your oath, you realized that you were going to be held to a higher standard. As leaders, sometimes mistakes are made. We are human and no one is perfect. Admitting personal fault for your actions demonstrates integrity and humility, which is what we the people expect from you. Feigning ignorance of your actions, on the other hand, to preserve your personal image is conceited and cowardly and should not be tolerated by this body. So in a nutshell, Madam Mayor and Council, which are you? Do you have the courage to address your peer, or will you bury your head in the sand until you have a code of ethics codified in black and white? David K. Fuller. And I want to note the second page of this is based on ordinance number 20007, so I will save that until that public hearing.
Okay, 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 all righty. So, that, then, anyone, last chance, anyone in the audience want to address the council regarding any other matter? Okay. Yeah, we're still in audience participation, sir. So with that, I will close audience participation. And does anybody want to have a break before we go into the public hearings? Anybody? We're ready. Are you ready to go into public hearings? Okay.
Sure.
Deputy Mayor, yes on break or yes on public hearings?
Either one.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. So any other comments from the council? Okay, all right, we will jump into public hearings then. So the first is ordinance 20-007. suspending ordinance number 18-004 pertaining to Palmer Municipal Code Charter 8.09 regarding the distribution of single-use disposable plastic shopping bags during the state of emergency order regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Does anyone want a staff report? Or are you ready for me to open the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing then on ordinance 20-007. Anyone is welcome to address the council. 3 minutes if you're representing yourself, 5 minutes if you're representing a group. Yep, come forth, sir.
Thank you. My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I represent myself. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more like the public interest. I was present when you passed this legislation that you're looking to change because of communication from Fred Myers. I was also present when City of Wasilla handled their proposal and legislation. I was also present at the borough and how they handled the thing. And I was also present in Anchorage in regarding their legislation. Now, it deeply concerns me. You got one letter from one major company, Fred Myers, and they want to have a temporary situation where they're concerned about they're running out of paper bags. But who else are you hearing from besides Fred Myers is one thing. And what other alternatives can that company do and others in dealing with the situation without resorting to plastic bags? I'd like to give you an example. Sagaya is in Anchorage, and you know I get around. They put out little boxes, and you can put stuff on there, you know, cartons, and that could be. I saw a communication in the packet. And by the way, when I'm talking, let's stop the clock. Well, let's stop the clock. It's at 1:55 because the mayor's not listening and the clerk is here. You need to stop the clock. This is not right. This is not right. You don't have many people testifying, and you're doing sidebar conversations here. This is wrong. Absolutely wrong. Can't you hold yourself to listen to the public, one person, and you have to go and resort to sidebar conversations? So what's the use? You really don't care. But I'll leave you with this. There was a communication that Rick said about the box situations. You're not hearing from anyone else. It is a problem. And then if you resort to that, when will the so-called emergency end? You know, tonight the Anchorage Assembly had a resolution to extend the emergency. There was no place for public comment. They did in the part of the agenda with all the stuff they passed, and there's no conversation to extend the emergency. That's what goes on in Anchorage, which should be a concern of the Valley. The Anchorage cannot speak on it, the Valley cannot speak on it, and they just do it, an extension. You all do sidebar conversations here, and you got a situation where so many people were involved, testified here and other places about this thing. And then look at this. You're dealing with a COVID emergency. And how many people are you seeing? I didn't see many comments in there in the packet, that so-called testimony packet. And by the way, as far as I know, who's seeing that? Unless the clerk reads that stuff, it's not part on the website. Doesn't go on the website. And that kind of scenario is terrible because even the Anchorage Assembly incorporates and puts it out. So I close with it, which I should have at least 30 more seconds since you had sidebar conversations. But I won't need that much. Just say, you need not to pass this thing at this time. You need to do a continuation of public hearing because obviously there's a lot of concerns out there about and encourage you to pass this legislation that you have. And now you got one company, Fred Myers, is asking for a plea of concern as how do we deal with this situation. So you need to continue public hearing. You need to not address and discuss this issue and allow for a continued public hearing, then close public hearing, and then you can discuss the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the council on the public hearing regarding ordinance 20-007?
opportunity to stand up, I'll think of something to say. But thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to have public hearings when discussing issues of this sort. Mike Malevsky, I still live at 325 East Farweed Avenue, and I think I'm more curious than anything because I too was at the meeting where the topic came up and around the plastic bags, and I'm still not quite aware. And I would hope that as the discussion goes on for the vote, the amount of interest in this particular topic will be revealed in whatever form it came. Because it was a little fuzzy to me. It was a discussion between the mayor, as I understood, and representative from Fred Meyer, but I didn't get the sense that this was a critical issue that Fred Meyer was bringing and saying we really need this because it will dramatically affect our lives. However, as I thought more about it, I began to think, okay, I know that when the plastic bag issue came up the first time, there was considerable discussion about it. And there were back and forth around whether this would impose in some way a burden upon people who use plastic bags for a variety of topics. Just for one thing, I can't replicate that entire discussion. But I just wonder at this time, when we are talking about significant issues such as the CARES Act monies and other things, the plastic bag piece seems to be small change, and I'm not sure yet I have enough information to go beyond that. And what I'm hoping, I'm requesting actually then, is that in the discussion from council members, mayor and manager and whoever else, that will be illuminated as to its intention, who's going to be helped by something which has become a part of the community, the lessening of plastic bags. And as someone who had participated over the years in collecting trash on our cleanup days, not having plastic bags around is quite visible. I mean, it's a noticeable change that happens since we did that. That's just an observation. So I began by saying I'm more curious than anything else, and I would look forward to hearing more. But thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the council on ordinance 20-007? Okay, before I close the public hearing, we do have some written testimonies that the clerk will read into the record, please. Uh-oh,
I'm
your
done.
Time's up.
Exactly, my time's up. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Public testimony for ordinance number 20-007 regarding temporary suspension of the plastic bag distribution. This is written testimony that was received. First, Thomas Cruz, to whom this may concern. I am so proud of Palmer for constantly striving to do right by its community and citizens. I have lived here for the better part of a decade and am very happy to raise my children here. Even throughout this pandemic, Palmer has maintained its identity and a strong sense of community. In a time of crisis, I understand norms will shift, as can currently be noted in almost all aspects of daily life. Some of these changes will last indefinitely. Reversing the progress we have made on limiting the amount of unnecessary plastic that fills our landfills, forests, and parks should not be a permanent change. As a community, let's get through this with our values still intact. Thank you all for your leadership and the work you are doing. Sincerely, Thomas. P.S. Fisher. The plastic bag ordinance of 2018 made a tremendous difference to our community. There have been so many fewer plastic bags hanging in the trees, clinging to fences, cluttering the roadways. The ordinance enhanced the already glorious natural beauty of our home. Residents were accepting of the change that the ordinance brought and have become used to bringing their own bags and bagging their own groceries. Not a big deal. So I am strongly urging the council not to go back to the bad old days of single-use plastic bags. It is not necessary. There will be paper bags back in the stores before too long, just as other items have returned. In the meantime, groceries can be put back in the basket. Shoppers can bring their own bags. Cardboard boxes could be used for online orders. Further, there is no evidence of COVID-19 transmission from reusable bags. Do not take a step backward and undo the good work that was accomplished with the 2018 ordinance. David and Andrea Fuller. Madam Mayor and Council, in regards to ordinance number 20-007, I would like this body to provide more information to the citizens of Palmer on the topic, beginning with the timeline of events of how this issue came to be and bypassed the city manager's desk altogether. Last I checked, the mayor and council do not act on behalf of the city, as that is the job of the city manager. Second, the purpose of Palmer Municipal Code 8.09 is to reduce the generation of waste from single-use plastic disposable shopping bags. How is this accomplishing that goal, and how does it benefit Palmer? Granted, the supply of paper bags is limited, but what is the impact on Fred Meyer? Will they lose business? Will it affect their bottom line? If anything, they could charge a bag fee and encourage folks to bring their own bags and totes, thus satisfying the ordinance and its intent. Third, if Fred Meyer is in violation of Palmer Municipal Code 8.09, why has nothing been done to address the issue, and why are they claiming the mayor has granted them a waiver? Moreover, will the city exercise enforcement of its ordinance, or is it just another paper tiger ordinance? Finally, why is the mayor fixated on helping out a nationally known multi-million-dollar company that will make its bottom line with or without plastic bags at the expense of the will of the people and environment? Ironically, during road construction last year, where was the city for small businesses? They knew of the issues but didn't do anything like post wayfinding signs and did little to promote accessibility into town. That issue was left to small businesses to figure out themselves through innovative means, which they did on their own. Madam Mayor and Council, when Palmer Municipal Code 8.09 was passed, citizens of Palmer and small businesses embraced and adapted to it without complaint. Who do you serve, the people of Palmer or the big grocery chain? David K. Fuller. Elizabeth Jackson. Dear council members, the city of Palmer and the surrounding areas look and are so much better now that they are free of the flyaway plastic bags hanging from the fences and treetops, and I appreciate your implementation of the ban some time ago to reduce the distribution of these unsightly and destructive bags. That is why I am concerned with ordinance 20-007, its confusing language regarding the end date. I have read this ordinance to suspend the ban on the use of plastic bags and want to go on record against this move. Fred Meyer's can use the paper bags that they have for their click list orders and quit destroying their boxes so customers can use them, or continue to let customers use their own bags they are accustomed to bringing with them. The ordinance is confusing as written, as it seems to contradict the end date for this suspension of the ban. In section 1, it states the ordinance shall be permanent. In section 4, it states that chapter 8.09, which I am assuming is the original ordinance banning plastic bags of a certain thickness, shall be in effect 60 days following the lifting of the emergency orders regarding COVID-19. Please don't go back in time and start allowing the plastic bags to be used in our town again. They are still very detrimental to the environment, unsightly in the beautiful trees and fences in our town, and unnecessary. Thank you for your consideration. Liz Jackson. Jennifer Johnson. To the Palmer City Council, I am writing in regards to the proposed ordinance 12-007, suspending ordinance 18-004. I oppose such an action and reject the need to even consider it, as there is a very simple and cost-effective alternative to Fred Meyer, which Jeffrey Temple, Director of Corporate Affairs for the corporation, left out in his letter dated July 13, 2020 to Mr. Musi, which seemingly is the catalyst for this proposal. That's a really long sentence. Mr. Temple's letter can be found on page 52, Palmer City Council Agenda, July 28, 2020. Ordinance 18-004, banning the use of single-use disposable plastic bags less than 4 mils thickness, was not decided on so quickly, nor easily, and I do not believe that this should be either. On what is this vote decided on? Simply a letter of request by a Fred Meyer corporate officer that works and lives in Oregon? What about your constituents that work and live here in Palmer, Alaska, and that have been firsthand the improvements, who have seen firsthand the improvements in the environment since the ban? Why should we as a community suspend the ban to, quote, allow the paper industry to catch up, and, quote, presumably with demand, as quoted on page 46, paragraph 2 of Palmer City Council Agenda dated July 28, 2020? Exactly how is that our problem or responsibility? It isn't. What is our problem is that uninformed and uneducated individuals do not yet know enough about the consequences of the use of this obnoxious plastic bags that are detrimental to the environment, wildlife, and ourselves. I have neighbors that still burn their garbage, plastic and all. Unfortunately, this is done throughout the Mat-Su Valley. I have a simple solution for Mr. Temple, Fred Meyer stores, and the Palmer City Council. Bring your own reusable bags to the stores, even if it means, God forbid, you have to pack them yourselves. By encouraging its customers to do this until the paper bag companies can meet demand, Fred Meyer Meyer can save money by not needing to supply us with those hideous plastic bags that never fail to escape into the environment, only to snag in the trees where they can remain for years, waving at us like our white flags of surrender to corporate greed and power. I request that you all vote against Ordinance 20-007, suspending an earlier ordinance that rightfully bans single-use disposable 4 mil or less plastic bags. Please consider doing the right thing for your community. Thank you, Jennifer Johnson. Carol Montgomery. Mayor DeVries and Palmer City Council members, I understand that there is an apparent run on paper bags, but there doesn't need to be. Anyone who shops at Costco knows that bags are not a necessary part of shopping. Instead of breaking down all those cardboard boxes, Fred Meyer's could offer them to customers at carry out like Costco does, or package their Click It orders in them. There are all kinds of solutions to avoid a paper bag shortage. Rescinding or suspending our hugely successful and popular plastic bag ban is not one of them. And there is no evidence of COVID-19 transmission from reusable bags. Accepting a single-use bag, whether paper or plastic, is just one more item that you bring home that is as contaminated as any other grocery item handled by a clerk. It does not keep you any safer. You can still use your own reusable bags most places as long as you don't hand them to the clerk. Or you can have the clerk put the groceries in the cart and bag or box them when you get to your car. While I understand that the intention of Ordinance 20-007 was to temporarily lift the ban on plastic bags, I found the ordinance very confusing and contradictory. I don't understand why Section 1 states the ordinance is permanent in nature, and Section 2 says that Ordinance 8.09, the original bag ordinance, is suspended for 60 days following the lifting of the State of Alaska emergency orders. There is so much that is difficult right now, but the one good thing is we still have a wonderful community in Palmer, and for the first time in years, it's not blighted by the sight of bags hanging from trees and cotton brush. I ride my bike in the Butte every spring, and in the past would stop about every 5 feet, well, it says 5 inches, and pick up, the double is inches,
right.
thank you, yeah, like about every 5 inches, and to pick up plastic bags by the side of the road. This year I rode out there and didn't see one bag. It was wonderful. Please let's not go backwards. Fred Meyer's is a big, powerful company, and I'm sure they can find other solutions besides overriding out community legislation. Thank you for considering my comments. Carol Montgomery. And Mikey Powers, Dear Palmer City Council members, thank you for having passed Ordinance 18-004. We have come far as a community in reducing plastic pollution by banning the what's that word? No, it's not. UBIQUIT.
Ubiquitous.
Thank you. That's the word. You see the word, you know what it is, but you can't say it. That's the word. Thank you so much. Single-use plastic grocery bag. It is so nice as someone who uses the local trail systems regularly to no longer see these bags flying in the wind and attached to trees and bushes along the roadways and in our natural areas. It appeared to me the implementation of Ordinance 18-004 went smoothly, and I saw more and more people bringing their own reusable bags to stores. I have concerns about Ordinance number 20-007. For example, 1, is the ordinance temporary or permanent? Section 3 and 4 imply that the ordinance is temporary, yet Section 1 states that it is permanent. 2, what is the end date? Some State of Alaska emergency orders could continue as a safety measure long after the pandemic is under control. What if paper bags are available to retailers before all the emergency orders have been rescinded? 3, I would not like to see our community moving backwards with regards to plastic pollution. The reasons for implementing the original plastic grocery bag ban remain: pollution of our lands and waters, wildlife concerns, tourism concerns, etc. On the Kroger Zero, Hunger Zero Waste website, they committed to zero waste by 2020. I understand that COVID-19 has required flexibility in company goals, but surely Kroger Fred Meyer could work with the community to find an alternative to resuming the use of single-use plastic grocery bags. Please put me on the record as being against proposed ordinance number 20-007. Thank you for your time and consideration. And Mikey Powers. Terry Snyder. Once again, due to COVID-19, I am unable to be at the Palmer City Council meeting in person tonight, and ask that respectively the clerk read into the record my strong objection to passage of Ord 20-007, suspending use of single-use plastic bags. This is a difficult time. Businesses, big and small, have had to find a new measure have nimbleness to keep their doors open. No mega million-dollar corporation that is currently making record profits is better equipped to deal with supply chain disruptions than big box stores, yet here they are asking. If they did ask to start with, which frankly I question. In case anyone has forgotten, earlier this year when Fred Meyer ran out of flour, yeast, toilet paper, and other staples for weeks, that was the way it was. The public was briefly inconvenienced, but they adapted. The city didn't intervene or ask to suspend the guidelines in how the city requires business to operate, nor was asked to. Exactly how it should work. I have shopped at Costco for decades without the exception of being given a paper bag. They sometimes have boxes that suit my purpose, which I bring home and recycle, but most often I place things back in my cart to load in the car. Thousands of people every day do this. The only thing different during this pandemic is I wear a mask when I go in, stay far away from others, and use a lot more hand sanitizer when I get back in my car. Speaking of Costco, I am attaching a picture taken last week of one of several stacks on their shelves for retail sale of paper bags, several sizes of paper bags, all for sale. If Costco can get grocery bags to sell the public into retailers, why can't Fred Meyer get enough to operate their own business model? Into use for carry their own again. Bag with just one item in it. Question. This way time. Instead of a waiver from city code, does it bags? That will end of which then will be hauled to an ever-expanding landfill at a cost to us all. This is a time when the first priorities for the mayor and council should be doing everything possible under the powers of the charter to protect people. Rolling back this ordinance will not only create more conflict and confusion in community on an issue that was settled, but quite possibly open Pandora's box for more concessions on protections for the city while using the current pandemic to make an excuse to do it. If the mayor and council really want to do something to help business during this time, they will be proactive in encouraging everyone to follow current CDC guidelines that include washing hands, wearing masks, which the mayor and council could require, and at the very least should model in doing so themselves in public spaces, and physical distancing 6 feet or more, and not unwind what has now become a good community tool in the best interest of all taxpayers and people in our city. Ordinance 20-007 should be voted down. Thank you for your consideration. There is a picture at the end, as she referenced in the middle of her letter. It's right here. And this is from Terry Snyder.
Okay, and that's all of the public testimony. Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's all the public, either in person or in writing testimony that we have regarding this public hearing. So does the council have any objections to me closing the public hearing? Okay, I don't see any, so I'm closing the public hearing on ordinance 20-007. So what is the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance number 20-007. Discussion, comments, amendments? Yes, Councilwoman
Madam
Burr.
Mayor?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I would like to make an amendment, but first, what I would ask is if someone else maybe could read out loud section number 3, the way it is worded. I have an amendment to change the wording to the way it's worded. Leaves some doubt in my mind anyway about clarity regarding how long, when it goes into effect and how long the suspension would be effective.
Okay, so section 3 on page 47 says Palmer Municipal,
Yes.
that's the one you want me to read, right? Palmer Municipal.
Please.
Okay, Palmer Municipal Code, Chapter 8.09 is hereby temporarily suspended for 60 calendar days following the lifting of the State of Alaska emergency orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Am I incorrect in the intent for this particular suspension is for the suspension to be now, and then the longest that it can go is 60 days after the state of Alaska lifts their emergency orders regarding COVID?
Yes, that's my understanding. Mike, if you have a different interpretation, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. That language could maybe be wordsmithed a little bit more. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Deputy, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. It could be wordsmithed a little bit more, and I'm happy to try to help out with that as necessary. Because it says the Palmer Municipal Code, Chapter 809, is temporarily suspended for 60 days following the lifting of the State of Alaska emergency orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think what the idea is that this is going to be in effect now and remain in effect for only 60 days after the emergency orders are lifted. But what emergency orders on the State of Alaska emergency orders, I guess when the governor removes them or they expire of their own accord, because they're only in effect for a certain period of time. So it may be that one section is not necessary and Section 4 handles it. I don't really like working on amendments like this at the council table, but I think we can do it. So if you look at Section 4, it says Palmer Municipal Code 809 shall be re-implemented and in full force and effect 60 days following the lifting of the State of Alaska emergency ordinances. I don't think you need Section 3. I think you just need to say Palmer Municipal Code 809 is temporarily suspended, but shall be re-implemented and in full force and effect. And then I think that gets to where you need to go, combining the two sections 3 and 4.
Okay. All right. And Deputy Mayor Combs, I know you said you had an amendment. Was that what you were thinking?
If you don't mind, Madam Mayor, when I first read it, I felt that all we would have to do is insert after the word suspended, where it says temporarily suspended, insert the phrase immediately following affirmative action by the Palmer City Council and will remain so up to 60-day calendar days following, and they just insert that, that it would be from now, or once it's approved, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then it would, the life of it would be up until,
Okay. Alrighty. Madam Clerk.
So either way would take care of that. I just think that we definitely have to have clarification. We don't need any confusion about when it goes into effect. And it is a temporary suspension. It's not a suspension forever and ever of a really, really good ordinance, okay? It's just, in my opinion, it's just one of those unfortunate, unforeseen consequences and situations that have to do with the world, well, whatever we're going through, and what we will be going through for some time. I have no problem with doing this. I just want to make sure that clear, this is when it starts, this is when it ends.
Okay, okay. Madam Clerk, were you able to get what Councilwoman or Deputy Mayor Combs wanted to insert in Section 3?
Thank you for asking, Madam Mayor. What I captured for her suggestion, I have Mike's of Section 4. What I captured of hers of Section 3 was reading, starting at is hereby temporarily suspended, adding in upon approved by City Council, and then continues to read as written for 60 calendar days following the lifting. So Section 3, Palmer Municipal Code, Chapter 8.09 is hereby temporarily suspended upon approval by City Council for 60 calendar days following the lifting of the State of Alaska emergency orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Did I capture that correctly?
Deputy Mayor, is that?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second, this is Steve.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now the discussion will be up on that amendment. So, questions, comments, or further amendment to the amendment? Yes, Councilwoman Burbrick.
So there's a lot of concern in the public testimony regarding the fact that there seems to be some confusion here between Section 1 and Section 3 and Section 4. So the ordinance, is it permanent in nature, or is it only for 60 days after the governor determines that we are no longer in a crisis?
Councilwoman Burbrick, I think maybe with the clerk, I'm going to call that discussion out of order at this time because we're talking just about the amendment, and then I'll recognize you for that discussion after we've decided on the amendment. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. The clerk is saying yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, further discussion just upon the amendment then is to Section 3. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you go ahead and take the roll then for the vote? You are voting on just the amendment that has been moved and seconded for Section 3. The clerk's going to call your name.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Burbrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Jill Valerius,
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
The amendment passes.
Okay, now Councilwoman Burbrick, I'll recognize you for your question that you had earlier, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So basically, I too am a little confused about whether or not this is going to be temporary or permanent in nature, as we have two sections that say two entirely different things. So I guess I'd like to make a motion that we strike Section 1 from this.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all righty. Mike, can you address Councilwoman Burbrick's, because I think what it's saying is that it's permanent in nature while it is being implemented. But Mike, what is your legal opinion on that?
Madam Mayor, thank you, and it's a good question from Councilmember Burbrick. I think that this is really a temporary ordinance and expires by its own terms. You could put it in the code, but I think a simple amendment stating that this ordinance is temporary in nature, and then it gets published in the code,
Stricken.
and expires as provided in sections 3 and 4. I think that kind of captures the idea. So I think maybe the business that it got picked up and that it was permanent in nature was just part of a template on this, and I think a small correction would be in order.
So Mike, would it be clearer to correct Section 1 or to remove it?
Oh, you would want to classify it in some way, so I think you would classify it as a temporary ordinance.
Okay, all right. So Councilwoman Burbrick, would you like to make that change, or would you like your motion to stand?
No, Madam Mayor, I would like to make that change. I'd like to make a motion to change Section 1 classification. This ordinance shall be temporary in nature and expire as Mike said there, in the terms that are listed ahead.
Okay.
Second.
Madam Clerk, did you, I got the temporary in nature,
So-
but then I didn't hear if you had some additional language.
Thank you.
Council.
The and shall incorporated into the Palmer Municipal Code would not happen. Temporary ordinances are not, it's just temporary.
Okay, so it would be
kinda like an
temporary
overlay.
or nature, period then, or comma, whatever.
Strike.
And then last
And shall expire.
incorporated will be deleted. Councilwoman Berberick, is that your intent?
Yes.
Okay,
Mike,
all
does
right.
that suffice legal?
So Mike, is that, and I always have to ask the legal opinion because he's the one that, if there is a question, he's the one that's going to have to defend us. So Mike, you understood our understanding the Second Amendment, and do you have any?
Or
So now the discussion on questions.
And it shall be temporary in nature.
Yes, period,
Okay.
period.
Because I would have a little problem if we added a second sentence that said deleted from the code, but
Yeah.
I like that. I like that it just goes in and classifies it as a temporary, issue. So thank you.
Okay. Further questions or comments on the Second Amendment? Okay, already. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll then on the amendment? You're only voting on the Second Amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Julie Berberick,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Jill Valerius,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So now you have before you the main motion on adopting ordinance number 20-007 with the two amendments. Madam Clerk, how many amendments are we allowed, or is there a number? Doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. Any further discussion, questions, or amendments? Councilwoman Berberick.
Further discussion on the whole ordinance as amended?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not going to vote for this. I am so proud of the city of Palmer for passing this ordinance in the first place, and I really kind of question how this came about. On July the 13th at 1:39 in the afternoon, I texted Manager Musi and asked him for some written proof that Fred Meyer had come to the city of Palmer and asking them if we would reverse this for the time being. I received an email back, or a text back from him, first of all, saying that he had not heard anything from Fred Meyer or CARS. And then 10 minutes later, I received an email that he forwarded to me in which he emailed Fred Myers and asked them for written proof. And that email is part of the packet tonight, part of the agenda. I didn't hear a single person in public testimony vote or say that they were in favor of this. As a matter of fact, people were vehemently not in favor of this, nor did I see anybody from Fred Meyer or CARS come and publicly testify again that this is something that they are requesting and are in need of. I'm not really sure. There were so many solutions that were brought up by the citizens that did testify tonight, and whether it's paper or plastic, I personally believe that most people could stand to bring their own plastic or their own reusable bags to the grocery store and start doing it. So I will not be voting for this.
Okay. Councilwoman Serena Combs?
Thank you. I want to note that on July 13th, it was still the policy of Fred Meyer that if you were going through an actual check stand, not the self-checkout, you could not hand them your personal bags to bag your groceries. Since then, they have gone back to how it was before, and they will take those bags. I don't see any point in this. The only people that have maybe spoken out is Fred Meyer, and I'm still not sure how that happened. I called Cars. They don't have a shortage on paper bags. I've talked to business owners in downtown Palmer, and they aren't having any issues. As one of the public comments showed, you can buy cases of paper bags at Costco right now. You can get them at Three Bears. I don't understand the point of this. There are so many other options. We don't need to take a step backward, and it's catering to possibly one business that currently is in violation because they are giving out plastic bags through QuickList, and they should be fined. I think that this completely disregards all of the work that we've done over the last couple of years to make people remember to bring their own bags, to figure out an alternative, and this isn't necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Councilwoman Valerius?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would echo some of those same things. I'm definitely not in favor of this. The fact that we've had nobody come to us really, other than when directly asked by our city manager, the fact that Cars isn't asking or having issues, the fact that you can buy bags. I was there today. They have paper bags. The checker gal was excited that I had my own bag today. So I think we've actually moved beyond this, and it's a moot point now. And I'm absolutely not in favor of passing this. So thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments before we vote? Okay.
Madam Mayor, this is Steve. Oh,
Yes, go ahead.
which one?
I'm sorry, what?
You.
We're going.
Madam Mayor, this is Steve Farrington.
Uh-huh. You have a comment, sir, before we vote?
Yes, I just wanted to comment that, well, although some of the language did have some struggles with the wording, et cetera, but the intent of this ordinance, I think, is it's intended very well, and it's got its own sunset clause built into it. So, you know, to me, it's a good ordinance. It's not something that's, you know, backtracking completely. It's for a specific purpose, and it's got the timing built into it. So, I'm in favor of this.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments before the clerk calls the roll for the vote?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Best.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to kind of have a overall point made. Many council members talk with many different business owners and citizens throughout our course of the day. There is nothing inappropriate with a business reaching out to the mayor or any members of council to discuss concerns that they might have and potentially bring legislation forward. Now, council members need to support. The mayor can add anything that she chooses. So, kind of this darkening of the idea of the process that has been projected is a little concerning. What I would also like to state is that right now, during this economic issue that we're having with pertaining to COVID and the different ramifications, anything that we can do to allow businesses to bob and weave to try to get us through this is going to be important. Now, what I would encourage is that a conversation is still had with Fred Meyers that and other businesses that might be entertaining the idea of utilizing these plastic bags is for it to be last case scenario, that if they get to a situation where the pulp mills are paring back and it's difficult to find the supplies so that they can get people their groceries in an expedient amount of time, then allow the businesses to have this option for a temporary amount of time. And thirdly, I'd like to state that why I have gone to Costco's and I have utilized those boxes, I don't think it's probably an efficient means in which to utilize paper products. The larger stores are able to compress them and or send them off for recycling in large quantities and saving space in our landfills. And when everybody just takes them home, much like one of the ladies had mentioned, several folks still burn their garbage. And so we'd be more folks to be burning these boxes in their burn barrels that are outside of city limits. People inside city limits, not everybody recycles. So they would just be going into the garbage and creating more of a landfill issue. So I think this is a temporary solution to a temporary problem, and I'm okay with it, and I appreciate it.
Further comments from Councilwoman Valerius?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, an amendment to Section 4, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Or actually, I guess it would be actually in Section 3, I'm sorry. If we're going to temporarily, so Palmer Municipal Code, Chapter 8.09 is hereby temporarily suspended for 60 calendar days. I would like it to say for 60 calendar days.
I'm sorry.
I would only like it to say 60 calendar days because I don't think we have which Alaska emergency order regarding COVID-19 pandemic, and then Section 4 would have to be stricken the same way, that it goes re-implemented in 60 days. We can give them 60 days. They have paper bags right now. They don't need this. And we're catering to one box store in Palmer. So Cars isn't asking for it. No other store is asking for it. So I would like to change that to 60, temporarily suspended for 60 calendar days. And then Palmer Municipal Code 8.09 in Section 4 shall be re-implemented and in full force and effect in 60 calendar days.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Okay. Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Discussion regarding that amendment? Okay. There's no discussion. The clerk then will call the roll on that amendment. Everybody understand what the amendment is? Okay. All righty. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Jill Valerius?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington?
No.
Councilmember Richard Best?
No.
Councilmember Julie Burbrick?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
No?
Mayor Edna DeVries?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Okay, any further discussions, comments? Councilwoman Sabrina Combs?
I guess I just want to make a point that we didn't receive a single bit of testimony tonight supporting this, including Fred Meyer, and how any of us could sit here and support this when no one came in to support this is against what our job is as council members.
Any further comments from council members? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you go ahead and take the roll then on the adoption of ordinance number 20-007 with the 2 amendments included?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Steve Carrington?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes?
Councilmember Julie Burbrick?
No.
Councilmember Richard Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
No.
Councilmember Jill Valerius?
No.
Mayor Edna DeVries,
Yes.
ordinance passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing on resolution number 20-019, the issue of the utility revenue bonds in the principal amount not to exceed $8 million to finance wastewater utility improvements as required by the federal consent decree, and to submit the question of the issuance of such bonds to the qualified voters of the city at the October 6, 2020 city election. And this is our first public hearing on this. Does anyone like to have a staff report before I open the public hearing? Okay, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on resolution number 20-1019. Anyone that would like to address the council? Okay, seeing no one coming forth, council, do you have any objections to me closing the public hearing? Okay, already the public hearing then on resolution 20-019 is closed. Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, I should have asked you first. Did we have any written testimony in support or opposition to this resolution?
We do not.
Okay, good. All right, great. Okay, so what is the wishes of the council regarding this resolution?
Madam Mayor,
Move to approve.
Okay, I hear two people, so we have a first and a second. Discussion, amendments, questions? Oh, yes. Go ahead, sir.
I would request that we do not take action tonight, that we have a second viewing of this. Is that correct, Norma?
Right.
I mean,
we'll
this
adopt it on the
this is an $8 million ballot issue, and I think we would like to have this open for public comment, because this is pretty significant. Nobody in this room wants to do it, but I think we have to, we're in a position where we have to. But I think it'd be good to have a second public hearing on this as opposed to approve it tonight, and I ask you to please do that.
Right. Yeah, it says here on the agenda, this is the first public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
So the motion will remain on the floor.
Yes.
We can still make amendments tonight or questions and comments if there's additional information anybody would want. And I'm sorry, Councilman Carrington, did I hear you seek recognition?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to ask the manager a question, if I may.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Manager, with the 8 million, I'm glad to hear that you recognize the size of that. But is this something that it's probable that it's in our future sometime? It's just whether it needs to be in the next 3 years versus 20 or 30 years? Is that a true statement?
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I hope it isn't true, but we are working to make sure it's not, but it is, it's a coin flip. We have this reminder, this consent decree occurred in 2016. We have been working through it. We have a plan, a show-me plan to the Department of Justice that we are hopeful it's going to work. What we need to do is continue to clean out the lagoons, which you all got a whiff of early in the summer. That's but we need time, and we're asking for us to give us time to prove that our lagoon system will work to avoid this clarifier, which is approximately $8 million expense. What is happening is in 2016, we were ordered to move forward in this direction. And there are significant fines if we do not meet this. We've had good discussions, but we don't have approval yet. So is it inevitable that this is going to happen in 2 years or 6 years? We would like to think we could kind of push that off because we think the lagoons will work. We have a different process, and staff has been working really hard. So we'd like to give it that shot. The issue we have is we have to show good faith and take this to the voters. We need to move this, have the voters approve this so we can move forward but if is, we are going to be applying for grants and low interest loans. And so the $8 million we anticipate is the most that we would have to borrow. We hope it's significantly less than that if we have to borrow anything at all. I'm sorry, it's a convoluted answer, but we're working not to make this happen, but it's a coin flip on whether it's going to happen or not.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Is the city
Madam
manager?
Mayor,
Oh, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, was there a second? Was there a clear second on this?
Yes, yes. Councilman Carrington and Deputy Mayor Combs both spoke at the same time, and so I allowed the city clerk to determine who was maker and who was second.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's clear. There's a big measure, so want to make sure that that was clear on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, bring anything to my attention, we want it to be done correctly. Thank you. And so we do have a motion and a second. This will appear on our August 11th meeting again. And at that time, then we will have a discussion as well as we'll have another public hearing on it. Is there anyone that wants further discussion tonight or any amendments before I close this item off the agenda for this evening?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just because the attorney seemed to be very concerned with making sure that we had it clear, could you actually have the clerk read who on record is the maker of the motion and the second?
Oh, excellent. Yes. Madam Clerk, would you do that, please, for me?
First was Deputy Mayor, second was Councilmember Steve Carrington. Deputy Mayor Combs.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Any other discussion, questions? Okay. So again, that will be on our next meeting's agenda. Now we'll move to the public hearing on resolution number 20-020, accepting and appropriating the 2020 State of Alaska DUI High Visibility Enforcement Grant 405D M5HV2-20-01-FA parentheses AA -10 in the amount of $18,720 to be used for the DUI high visibility enforcement activities by the Palmer Police Department from July 3, 2020 through September 8, 2020.
So moved.
Okay. I need to do the public hearing, sir, first. So let me go ahead. So let me go ahead and open the public hearing for resolution 20-020. Is there anyone that would like to testify on this issue?
I'll be very brief. My name is Eugene Carl Haveman. I live in the Metro Valley. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely in public interest. I want to stress this key point to urge you not to do something with regard to this. When you close public hearing, and then you reopen something, which was in the last one, you went and did some amendments with the understanding you're having a second public hearing. You do that, that's not right. Because you're changing what the proposal is. And excuse me, Mayor, please stop shaking your head. Listen to what I'm saying with respect for the 180 seconds I have a chance to speak here. But the fact is that I do appreciate the mayor, whenever closing public hearing, or this one, or whatever, asking if they're ever is there any objection to closing public hearing? But don't create the situation which you did the other one, again on this one, where you allow public hearing, again, if you do that, but then you do amendments, and then that's going to the public at the second public hearing. Even the Borough Assembly doesn't do this, and you know how I think about the Borough Assembly. Okay, that's not the way to run a show, okay, with all due respect. And that's all I have to say with 1 minute and 39 seconds to spare.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to testify in Resolution 20-020? Okay. So does the council have any objections to me closing the public hearing? No? Okay, so we'll close the public hearing. What is the wishes of the council? And I think earlier I'll recognize was it Councilman Best that
Yes, ma'am.
make a motion before? So I'll recognize you, sir, for your motion at this time. Okay, is there a second then to Councilman Best on the adoption of this resolution?
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
This Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, discussion, questions, amendments, comments?
Yes,
Question of the city manager.
if I might make a comment, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'm really pleased to see that, our police department, as they've done in the past, have pursued, this sort of grant. We've, had this, grant or similar ones to it in the past, and they've been extremely effective. It's very, very helpful, to our community, serves them well. And, I appreciate the fact that, like I said, that, this has been a habit, if you would like to call it that, in past years, and I'm really glad to see that it's in front of us again. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, comments, amendments to the motion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to have a question of the manager. Is there any of the assurances, grant assurances in Section 3 that raise any concerns?
No, sir, not that we've already committed to in other grants.
If I may, one kind of struck me as a little odd, and whether this is a question of the attorney or the city manager, it doesn't matter to me. Prohibition of using grant funds to check for helmet usage. It's kind of interesting that very specific act is indicated in here, and I was just wanting to, it just was odd to me.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry, sure, yes, please.
So when we are getting grants from federal and other legislative bodies, these things are thrown in because something happened, and this is what's going to get these things across the finish line. Just like any type of federal funding, you'll have a general bill. I think we're talking about it with the $1 trillion COVID thing. We're going to build new FBI center in Washington, D.C. These things get thrown in all the time. So we deal with those. It doesn't really obligate us too much outside, that we just got to make sure we follow our P's and Q's with the grant. And since I stated P's and Q's, I have a mea culpa on this. Part of this grant has been spent early in July, and I want you to inform that I will make sure it doesn't happen, but I just kind of slipped past a goalie on this one. And we've had some discussions that no funds are being spent before city council approval.
Okay, further questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll for the vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Richard Best?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Burbrick?
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
Yes.
Councilmember Jill Valerius?
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Alrighty, then we don't have any new business. Madam Clerk, a record of the items placed on the table, please.
We have the city manager's report and public testimony.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is audience participation. Audience participation is now open. 3 minutes if you're representing yourself, 5 minutes if you're representing a group.
My name is Eugene Haveman. I represent myself. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more like the public interest. I'm sorry that the city manager is not here. He has to step out for a couple of minutes. But the scenario is what I said to you at a previous meeting. You're holding these meetings here in which you allow a very limited number of people that can be physically in this room. I made a good recommendation to you all to move your meetings to the assembly chambers in the borough. They meet alternate Tuesdays, and I don't think there would be a problem with that. I think there would be an encouragement by holding your meetings over at the borough assembly chambers to allow the public to be engaged. You wonder, we've had a practice of people, long lines outside, and they have to come into the microphone and walk out. You had the plastic bag issue tonight, and I thought there'd be more people attending, but remind you, COVID issue means they see that you don't wear masks in this room, and you think they want to come in here. So the end result is this: move to that direction. I think the borough would be cooperative, because we need to work together. And this would be a good example where the borough and you are working together to allow more space for people to be engaged, and also take advantage of the video audio that's over there, so that people can see you all, and you could be distant, and the public can be distant, and there's extra rooms, and there's speakers in the hallways that extend out for people who want to wait beyond. They did a major investment over the years, and it was a good, wise investment. Take advantage of that and not use this excuse to the public and saying, we don't want to come to the room. And then I also want to put a footnote. This packet being read to you, these communications, I'm glad you're seeing them, but the fact is, it's not on the website. It's not on the website tomorrow. I've raised questions about that. That type of documentation and communication that the people need to see and be part of. And even the Anchorage Assembly, with all due respect, and I have a lot of problems over there with how they operate, particularly tonight, and I'm listening to. And they're doing an extension, by the way, for continuance of the emergency order. And there was no place for public comment. They haven't spoken, and the meeting started at 5, and they're yet to deal with their first public hearing for tonight. And they're still talking about other issues. That's how they run their show down there. And by the way, the public can't even come into the room anymore now, since the last meeting that I was physically there last Wednesday. So we are isolated. And when I say we, the public, and create a more connection with the public, and then closing the state fair. CARES Act funding shouldn't be going to parts like the state fair when they do despicable things like making sure they don't wear masks. And the borough, I'm going to be recommending that they get that check back if they already sent it on the CARES Act funding.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify under audience participation? Okay, I'm going to close audience participation, and I'll bring it back to councilman comments. The clerk did ask if I could recognize her, as she had an addition to her report. So if the council doesn't mind, I will call on the clerk first for her additional comment. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the things that I did want to remind council, we will be having on our next agenda is the confirmation of the election officials for the election. They are our poll workers, but one additional opportunity that we provide amongst the many for our citizens is early voting. And this year, as the council has requested, and as we saw, as the need and demand did ask for, we will be opening on Saturdays for early voting. I did have quite a few election officials withdraw their application, and I have been begging and pleading a lot the last 2 weeks for election officials. So if anyone knows anyone who is still available, might be available and willing to work, I do need additional people as backup. basically, in case something comes up, someone's not able to serve the day of, things happen. And so with that also, I do have one election official that will be working all total 12 days of the early voting. It is 8 to 5, Monday through Saturday. The only day that we will be not holding early voting 2 weeks prior to election is on a Sunday. And we need 2 election officials present during early voting due to the security of our ballots and the equipment. So my expression of concern on that was I do not want to burn out this election official. Bless her, bless her. I am so grateful that she is stepping up to do that. But I did have, even within my early voting election officials, I had 3 withdraw their application. So she is stepping up to fill that gap. And then I have 2 other election officials that will be on shift. And I'm so tremendously grateful for these election officials that have committed at this time with complete understanding that a lot can happen between now and October. And so I do want to let council know, and I just say it, that we want to honor everyone being able to vote, but it is definitely coming at a difficult place right now with trying to secure these election officials. So thank you so much. Please, if you know anyone, get them to contact me so that we can get those applications in, and we can let everyone know that early voting will be occurring Monday through Saturday, 8 to 5, Matsu Borough Lobby at their administration building. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
would it be okay if I ask the clerk a question? It pertains to the upcoming election. Thank you, Madam Mayor. With what was expressed tonight about it's not the initiative, the marijuana recall that will go before the voters, it is officially now on the ballot. And are there prohibitions now since it is now accepted and officially on the ballot, from council members making comments on, since this is going to go before the voters, or taking positions by the council, or is there any prohibitions on that?
My understanding is by campaigning for a matter that is on the ballot, that the city would need to pass a resolution. I understand that there's financial that could go along with that. Mike, please help clarify as to the council's role for that. I know that I, as a employee, cannot do anything because that would require a financial of my, salary and so forth. But council doesn't have any financial interest in that, Mike, for passing that resolution. Have I misunderstood that council could speak on behalf of what is on the ballot? Just staff cannot, unless we pass the resolution putting funds, stating that funds would be expensed in campaigning. Oh my, that doesn't sound very clear in my mind right now, how I stated that, so.
Madam Mayor,
If I may.
I can help clarify that. I can wait, though.
No, please.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, okay.
Julie Burbrick.
Has left.
The question of expending money to influence a ballot proposition is in our code, and it's also in Title 15 and applies to political subdivisions such as the city. And in the past, I remember there was a ballot measure, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now, and the AML had asked the city to oppose it and had a draft resolution they had circulated statewide. And the city at that time felt that the ballot measure prepared by an outside group was not one that would support it.
Julie Burbrick
has joined.
And so they did decide to oppose it, but in order to meet the requirement that public monies not be spent to influence ballot propositions, they appropriated the amount of money they estimated it would have cost to prepare the resolution and use staff time. So they did that. I'm not sure that that's the question that's being asked. I think that the question that's being asked is, can council members take a position supporting or opposing the ballot measure? And I think they can, as council members outside of the council process. But I think that ordinance regarding spending public monies would prohibit the council from doing any sort of lobbying or position statements, aside to provide information about the ballot proposition without passing an ordinance allowing them to do so. So I don't know if that answers Councilmember Beth's question, but that's the prohibition in our code and in Title 15.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I think Mike really parsed the question that I know was kind of really asking twofold. One, can the city council take a position and or expend money? And two, as an individual person, a member of council, take a position on their own. So he answered the question perfectly. I appreciate it.
Okay. Alrighty, so now we'll move on to councilman comments. Councilman Carrington, do you have some comments, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted, I had some thoughts, but I didn't want to bring them up in the middle of public hearings. But I was going to suggest that we consider receiving the emails that we get for comments, and that we make that like an addendum that can be added below our the current packet, so that it is available on the website. And then with that, I would suggest that we could say our default is to not read them into the record, but that they're available on the website. At least that's my suggestion as 14% of the council.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Any other comments?
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I would say is that when people, come and testify on a particular item, that doesn't end up on the website either. So whether it's verbally or written, neither one of them end up on the website, correct, Madam Clerk? So, pardon? Yeah, either one. I mean, when the people that testified tonight, none of that ends up on the website. Yeah, so, anyway. Yeah, yeah, so it doesn't matter whether it was written or in person.
It is.
Go ahead.
It is available to the public if they would like it. They just have to request it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're more than happy to provide it
Right.
to the public through the right process. So yeah, it is one of those things that doing something like that does require staff time. It will require server space as you add all that stuff additional. There's money associated with doing all of that.
Right, okay, all right. So if you, yeah, right. So council may want to think about if they want to handle that differently or how they want it to handle, and welcome to put that on a future agenda for further discussion or whatever anybody would want. Okay, Councilwoman Berberick, do you have some comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to note that listening to the city clerk talk about how much work it's going to be to get ready for this election and finding people to work for this election, I'd like to encourage people to vote by mail and request an absentee ballot. I've already received my primary ballot for the state of Alaska, and it's easy peasy, and I'd like to just encourage as many people as possible to request an absentee ballot so they can reduce at least the poll working on the city clerk. And then also I'd like to encourage more people to complete the census. it's been extended, and so there's lots of time for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Valerius?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Couple of comments tonight. I guess one, I'm curious why all of us are not on a Zoom. One of us has never been on a Zoom meeting, and I think when we have Zoom available, which we do, I think Zoom is appropriate. I get that there are times that we can be phoning in, but it is very helpful to see one another, and I think it allows our constituents to see us. So that's my comment with regard to Zoom, and then we also know where people are, and that's quite helpful and actually mandated in our charter. And I would also ask, I'm going to ask for support in repealing Palmer Municipal Code 5.32.
I would second.
Madam Clerk, did you get which section she wanted to repeal?
Madam Mayor, she said 5.32, which I'd like to point out that that is the referendum section.
Okay.
So in order to do that repeal and have it not be on the ballot, cause any confusion, we would need to be calling a special meeting. So that would need to be addressed as well if that continued, this repeal, which was seconded by Councilmember Combs.
Do you want to have a special meeting then prior to August 11th? Or do you want to have a meeting, I think the clerk said we could have a special meeting 2 or 3 days after that, right? Is that your drop deadline? Because we're getting close to the time for the ballots to be.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the drop deadline date in order to conduct a meeting would, it has to be end of business day on the 14th, Friday the 14th. So as council conducts meetings in the evenings, that would need to be on Thursday, August 13th. So the introduction, if you're talking about calling a special meeting after a regular meeting on August 11th, the introduction would happen the 11th, and then a meeting would need to be called either the 12th or the 13th in the evening. Or a special meeting could be called on the 5th or 6th. For introduction with public hearing on the 11th. And the reason I say that we can't do it the 4th is because I can't get my notice in the paper since tonight.
Okay. Okay. So if you want to go ahead, Councilwoman Valerius or Councilwoman Sabrina Combs, since you're the two requesters, if you want to get with the clerk and talk to her about those dates, or if you want to state those dates now when you would like them, so the public would be aware, would be more noticed for the public regarding special meeting. So what is your desires? Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, I guess my only question, I don't know the schedule well enough for AML. To me, it seems like having the special meeting a little bit later gives people more time. But I don't know that schedule well enough for AML. Would that matter? I mean,
Madam Mayor, the meeting would be in the evening and all of the AML business is conducted up until 5 p.m.
Okay. So I guess to me it would make sense to do it after that, after the regular, I guess it'd be after the 11th.
Okay. So you would go ahead and,
The 12th or 13th.
okay. So you're asking then it be placed on the agenda for the August 11th meeting, and then requesting the clerk to schedule a special meeting. What would be your recommendation, Madam Clerk?
I need it the 12th because we have a utility billing mailer that we were having to hand stuff on the 12th. So now I'm going to need to ask the finance department to delay that a day. So introduction on the 11th for public hearing on the 12th, and we would not be allowed to afford for a second public hearing if needed. So 11th and 12th.
Okay. Alrighty. So.
Thank you.
Does everybody understand that proposed time then? Okay, everybody okay with that? Councilman Valerius, did you have any other council comments?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, alrighty. Okay, Councilwoman,
We have a motion on the floor We have a motion on the floor. We need a vote for that, please.
Uh,
The motion was to repeal.
I thought it was just the two council people requesting it to have it on the ballot. I mean, having it on the agenda.
Yeah.
What I heard was I make a motion to repeal Palmer Municipal Code 5.32, which that's a full motion. That wasn't a I sponsor. So I would appreciate clarification. You're right, because I think we heard two different possibly
Okay.
then.
Okay, first of all, I would rule that motion out of order because it has not been, it's not on our agenda. The two council people are certainly welcome to request that to be on the agenda for August 11th. But as far as the council taking a motion, we do not have that on our agenda to take that action. Councilwoman Valerius, go ahead.
I guess I didn't realize that I had worded it that way. I guess I thought I had asked for support in repealing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sorry about
I
that.
thought that's what you had stated as well.
Okay, all right. Okay, now Councilwoman Sabrina Combs. Do you have comments?
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
My only comment tonight is just how disappointed I am in the action taken today about the plastic bags. I think it disenfranchises our voters and makes people feel like their public testimony doesn't matter when all of the public testimony tonight was not supporting that. And yet 4 of you decided that your personal beliefs were more important. I'm disappointed.
Okay, other comments? Oh, that's it? Okay. Councilman Richard Best, do you have council comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had some testimony tonight by a gentleman that was talking about the raised intersections, and I would like to ask for council support to have the city manager provide any request that had been submitted to the state from the city for that speed hump. If there is any at all, and to continue a conversation with DOT as to how that traffic design had come about.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Okay. Councilman Best, is there further comments that you have?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I think that there was some good conversations today. I do have a question of the clerk. So when people testify in person, we ask for them to sign their name and their resident address. Many emails that we have gotten over this last couple of months from people providing public testimony, they never indicate by email. Many of them don't indicate where they are residents of. Can we make sure that that is part of the request when people submit letters to be added onto the record, that we have them state where their residence is as well?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
That is not, stating their address is not a requirement, not even on the form. All they do is state their name. If someone fills out the form and leaves everything blank except their name, we accept that. So for clarification on that, on the sign-in sheet, the only thing that we really ask for is the name. And to be honest, I don't chase anyone down even if they don't sign it. The sign-in form is used for staff to follow up, get correct spelling in the minutes if needed. And if they request for follow-up, that's the manager to use as that follow-up point. Let's say someone says, yes, I want follow-up on this topic, then we would clarify, do we have your number? Do we have an address to be able to reach out to you? But I do not require that part be filled out. So how would we like to proceed to treat them equally?
Okay. Help me, I know the two people that we still have in the audience tonight, when they always testify, they always say where their residence is, and it seems to me that a lot of people do that. So is that like something that the borough requests? Do they do that, or is it must be just voluntarily then that when people come in person and testify? John?
There was no requirement at the Mat-Su Borough.
Okay,
It might be a little different here. I'm learning that there are many people who do not live in Palmer who believe that Palmer is their number one priority in life.
right,
So it's a little bit different.
yeah, okay, thank you. So Councilman Best, did you have some further follow-up that you wanted to discuss that further?
Well, I think it brings into question when statements are made that we're disenfranchising voters. I think that should be taken into account. You know, we get a lot of public testimony that are folks that are not residents of the city of Palmer, and I'm not saying that they should not participate. And I believe in the past, and I don't know when we got away from it, that it was actually a requirement that they would state where they were residents from. I don't believe Mr. Molesky, just kind of throws that out there unless it was something that kind of ingrained in process over time. And I appreciate him saying that, indicating where he lives. We have seen this since I've been on council, that's kind of the norm. And I believe before it was never enforced, but I believe it was required or asked of, and people would indicate it. So I'd like to have a conversation about this a little bit later, because I don't think it's an infringement, but it is important to understand where folks are coming from that are helping to form some of our votes.
Okay. All right. Did you want that to be an agenda item at some time? And if so, then if there would be...
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I think we have more important things that we're having to deal with. I think it's just kind of a long conversation for us to continue to have.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further council comments, sir? No, okay. Deputy Mayor Combs, council comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make sure that I comment that it's been just absolutely lovely. These last 2 weeks we've had, yes, we've had some rain, but that's okay, because on the days that the sun was shining, it was even more magnificent than ever. And it's been lovely just to see a lot of our citizens and their visitors enjoying the availability of our community, beautiful community, and the accommodations, accommodating outdoor areas. For example, the picnic tables down by the pavilion, several times in the last couple of weeks, I've gone by, in the middle of the day approximately, and every single one of them has someone using them, which I think is awesome. So if there's one thing right now that we can be certain of during these certainly uncertain days, is that there just really is not going to be any certainty regarding this pandemic and the changes. And I think it's really important that we keep our minds open to be flexible. We may know something one day that totally changes within just a matter of hours. And I think as community leaders, we just need to make sure that we continue to study what these changes are, how they affect our neighbors, our friends, our families, our community, and try just as absolutely hard as we possibly can, because I don't feel that there's any need to be polarized by some of the inconveniences, some of the differences we've had. If we need to take a different view, a better view of it. But the one thing for sure is that any part of our community, whether it be an individual citizen or a business, should be able to come to us, and we should listen to them with an open mind. We certainly should be supporting them. and not, coming up with, any kind of, derogatory terms to describe them in any way. We need to be very, very, even tempered, even, handed. And, I think Palmer has got such a strong foundation that we're going to come through this, in the long run, and it's going to be a long run, very, very well. And the only other thing I'd like to say is that I'd like to say happy birthday to Mr. Best. He's only got 2 more hours and it's his birthday, so thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Yep, happy birthday, Councilman Best. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.